All right, I guess that's rolling. Hey, everybody. Krusty Old Crow back again to do another one of his tactical perspective videos on the G.I. Joe classified line by Hasbro that I'm so passionate about. This one's going to be part two of the my G.I. Joe threat report on Root Hasbro. This time, Night Force is going to be the focus of the discussion, and what I've assessed as a very high threat level for Night Force, as enticing as it is. And I'm going to go into a little bit why all of that kind of scares me as a consumer, but has me excited as a fan of the toy. I'm also going to get into a bit of history about Joe a little bit. For most of you, this will be shared knowledge, and and it'll be a recap. So I'll try not to get too far into the history, but I'm going to capture some key points that are very relevant to what we're seeing on the market right now with the classified line today. And I use these as guidelines as to what I'm seeing on the horizon and where my threat levels are focusing as I look down this G.I. Joe classified Hasbro route that we're on, moving into the future. The reason I felt it necessary to explain what my thoughts are on this is because I think these threats that I speak of, and remembering that I'm using the oddball perspective on negative waves, man, is these are avoidable. They can be navigated. They can be cleared. We can work with this. We just have to see them coming, and this is why I keep coming back to things like Hasbro needs to go back to hiring veterans, and I say go back to hiring veterans because that's very tied to their history. If you look at who originated GI Joe, if you look at the '60s when they first marketed that, Stan Wesson is the guy who came up with the original concept of what became GI Joe after it moved over to the Hasselbrook or Hasselman, the owners of Hasbro. Hassel something. I can't remember their names without the notes here. So when we talk about that, he was trying to promote a army toy for boys, because the two leading toys on the market at that time were Hasbro's Mr. Potato Head, and I believe it's Mattel's Barbie. So there was no real direct competition between the two. Both were owning the market, and somewhere in between there, a new market could be created for boys with more aggressive toys based on World War II heroes and the movies and the spaghetti western kind of stuff that they were seeing on TV that was re-promoting the U.S. forces a little bit and telling stories to keep us all entertained back in the 60s. So Dan Levine is the guy that eventually, applied all the key points to the GI Joe that we recognize from the '80s market. At that time, the market was competing against the Cold War era politics, a re-promotion of U.S. forces, trying to get people back in love with the military post Vietnam era, and in the midst of Reagan versus Gorbachev. So promoting this toy was a bit easier, and back in the boardroom, like Dan Levine, you can be an advocate for Stan Wesson being the creator, but Dan Levine watched a movie called The Story of G.I. Joe that inspired that. Dan Levine was the one who saw the ultimate potential on how to execute Stan Wesson's vision into a competitive toy market that was now facing the success of Star Wars and their 3 1/4 or 3 3/4 inch figures. They had to borrow from that success and learn from that quickly if they wanted to do and achieve the mission statement, which was basically that they were going to create a team environment for this toy line. Where they saw the vulnerability in the Star Wars line wasn't in its success in sales or appeal or the movies. There was no vulnerability in any of that. It was the limits of it. It would be dependent on movie releases. So it would be scheduled, and then there would be decline between movie releases. You had only heroes and very minor sub characters, and villains and very minor sub characters, and you had a numbered amount of each, right? Luke, Han, Leia, Obi-Wan, C-3PO, R2-D2, Darth Vader, a couple of stormtroopers, and then you moved on. Boba Fett. Lando. But I mean, it was always very limited and very tight, right? And again, always tied to the movies. Hasbro exploits this by doing the trifecta approach of both a cartoon to plug just 30 seconds, plug their product in between actual cartoons, and then later have their own cartoon, which gets revamped by Dick. Another discussion that I'm always learning about. But at the same time, they're doing the comic book market release to plug their product. So they're hitting kids at different points on the daily trip with mom to the grocery store and around town doing chores. They start their Saturdays seeing the toy commercials. They go to the grocery store to go get groceries. Maybe they see the comic book. They see cereal on the shelves. By the time you hit the department store, that kid's leaving there screaming for a new G.I. Joe that he just saw on the shelf, right? Like, they did a very successful market on that. But it was that team point that they wanted to build a team of heroes that could ever expand and be built upon and have variations on. That was the goal from the very beginning. That was their entire strategy going into it. So the very long-winded approach to why I'm doing Night Force right now, because I just did a video about Tiger Force, and this all goes with it. This is why we are getting repaints, recasts, revisionings of characters we've had, and why some of them are palatable and some of them aren't. But people get upset about, well, why are we getting a repaint right away? And it was like, because it was successful in the 80s, and it is part of the overall goal is to provide variation and all this other stuff. And it's not their only strategy over at Hasbro, but it is a sore point strategy with some. So Night Force, I think, is a uniquely high one, and I'm going to go why. First off, when I started looking into Night Force, this van pulled up outside my house, and I've seen this van before. It's the same van that shows up when I go online on Facebook or something and start talking about what's wrong with a Marvel movie and a link to Disney and crap. And so, anyways, I just wanted to point that out because that one's outside right now. When I think of a Night Force in conventional warfare, I can't help but tie that to my tours in Kosovo and Afghanistan, where I did a lot of night patrolling and with a lot of night vision equipment and surveillance equipment, and just a lot of covert patrolling, which those of you who have the background that I do in other trades, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So just a quick picture. When I picture Night Force, I think of this picture here of me and my boys in the sandbox, right? And am I in that one? I don't even think I'm in that one. Nope, I think that's the rest of my crew, but there's my buddies. Anyways, I probably am the guy behind the camera at that point, but that's one of our many ops in Afghanistan. And I think of that when I think of Night Force, because that's what they, by definition, are. They are covert operatives that work at night. And then in addition to, beyond what I was ever even close to doing and stuff like that, is they were like counter surveillance and defensive operations and dealing with a lot of cyber stuff and high-tech equipment and technology and things along that line. Which is very fitting with the Joe broadening their story arc. And if I understand some of it, it allowed it to dip into the UK Valorverse stuff a little bit, and I think that's how we got our figure Big Ben. And we got our figure Jody Shooter just through an opening that I want to draw attention to with these repaints and these variation forces, such as Tiger Force or Night Force. That Night Force allowed us to do, but it seems Tiger Force is confining us to do. And the only reason Night Force is allowed to do is because I think Hasbro is trying to grab just a bit more money. And there's no nice way or negative way to say that. I think it's just to grab a little bit more money. And I think it's going to work. They're going to get their money. And I'll talk about that. So we'll talk about Big Ben, who is a member of Night Force in this current market. And the only reason I know him is because he's available at Walmart.com. Walmart, of course, being the guys that guys, it's a one take. I'm not going to stop it just because I got tangled up in a wire. Night Force at Walmart is really the only way here in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, that I can get the figures is to go through walmart.ca and order them. And this is turning into a bit of a conundrum for me when I see Big Ben, Shooter, the Mole Rats, and Wolf Spider guys coming out. I thought these were going to be on the shelf items because Walmart was carrying G.I. Joe Classified. And I thought the way it worked in the States on Target stuff, like when it says G.I. Joe Classified Target exclusive, I was under the impression you guys had over the shelf access to that. And maybe I was wrong about that. So when I'm so far understanding that these have been available in Canada for a little while, I have not seen them in a Walmart on the shelf yet in Ottawa, and I live in the Stittsville region of Ottawa, which is very close to the south borders. Um, and it concerns me because I feel like that's an unfair thing to confine something to just doing it online and going in for pickup, because there are fees associated with a lot of different pickups and even getting things brought to the store, and it's pushing a consumer to do things online that maybe some, and a large market of us, I think my age, prefer to go out of the house and do. It's a leisure activity to collect these things, right? So you do it at your leisure. Yeah, the new market likes online, but I think some of us like having other options. Like, I'm about and about that day and I just saw that store and look, they have that figure. That's fun. So anyways, Big Ben is an example of that. Jody Shooter, sorry, I'll talk about Tunnel Rat later. I did mention him in my Tiger Force video. Let's see where Jody Shooter is. There she is. Jody Shooter is one I wanted to talk about with Night Force, because I talk about the opportunity that is also being presented with Night Force. And this is a little bit of a stray from back in the 80s. The iteration we saw of Night Force back in that toy market around the 86, 87 line. Maybe it was later. She wasn't part of any original roster, and if you pay attention to the Tiger Force roster as well, Night Force has the same commonality. And back in the 80s, I didn't see any of the existing female Joes sitting on any of those rosters. Maybe they did in later iterations and I missed it when I was looking into things. I try to just get my key points. But I don't see a Scarlet on any of these teams. I don't see Lady J or CoverGirl. I can't think of any other females at this point. My mind's drawing a blank anyways. But now we have Helix and we have Jody Shooter. And Shooter was a character, if I understand this right, she showed up in, I think, the very first comic book. And she was just in one frame. Her name was just there. And I don't think it even talked about a gender at all. It was just like Jay Shooter. I think that was a shout out to Jim Shooter, who works at Marvel. But at the same time, I believe, if I remember what I was hearing when I just started collecting all this, I thought that was really interesting. Just amazing that they made a character out of it, and then they threw it on the Night Force line, and I kind of see why now. It's because you don't have any original females on any of these variants teams. So how do you market that, and how do you collect capital in this new woke era where it's kind of like everything is about its diversity and its mass appeal and its inclusion, right? And whether we like it or not, that is what the world is going to do when it's coming to selling things to people. So we need to find ways to embrace that with our Joes without upsetting all these purists like ourselves, I guess, more or less, and introducing new things. So Jody Shooter was a prime example of where that was a great opportunity and anything but a high IED threat. Except when we go back to Walmart again and the availability and what I'm seeing for Night Force being kind of hard to get out here in Canada. And please tell me if it's really easy for you guys to get over the shelf up north, out south there in the States or wherever you're from, because right now in Ottawa, I'm finding this very difficult. I know, clicks of the button, credit card, fees. I'd prefer to just get this spontaneously, the same way I go about all my other figures if I drop by Walmart and I don't have them, and if I go to GameStop or Toys R Us and I don't have that figure. Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, I'm feeling the limits on that. And of course, Wolf Spider was one I really wanted to get excited about. I thought that was a great concept of a character, the Helo Ops or Rescue Op. It fit in with that Night Force theme. All of these characters have these colors that they're picking for the Night Force characters are perfect, and they are a shout out back to what they were accomplishing with the original Night Force line back in the day. And you're going to see pictures of that in a minute. But Sorry, guys. It occurs to me I've never once brought this camera closer or this tablet closer to show you what the pictures I'm talking about. But there's yeah, we might as well get into Tunnel Rat next. But there's Big Ben. Okay, Tunnel Rat, and you see him up here. This was the one that already was an IED as soon as it was announced, and just in the lowest sense, I think people were just put off by the fact that they went so quickly into a repaint with Tunnel Rat. Pardon me, well, I'll just make sure. Yeah, there we go. They went so quickly with the repaint into Tunnel Rat, and I think the idea is that it was just too soon after the release came out, and they all of a sudden you had another good repaint as opposed to a risky repaint. On my last video, I showed you what the Tiger Force variant of the Tunnel Rat could have been that we could have gotten, and I am not. I don't hate this. I do not hate this. If this had come even before that, I would have been a big fan of that. Would we be cycling back to that whole Recondo discussion? Probably. But that's a good repaint, right? So here we are, small little threats, some repetitive discussions about repaints that we see with now Night Force showing up. But Wolf Spider was somebody new that I was getting excited about. Jody Shooter was somebody I knew I was getting excited about. And I pull up this image because I was trying to think back. Was I into that at the time? So I remember they had their own hovercraft and all that other stuff. But I remember just reflecting through catalogs because I think it was back when I was trying to throw myself more into comic collecting and the other stuff that I talked about in the other video. You know, being that kid that's growing out of Joe at this particular point. So I'm just going to bring that back. And then, of course, the Mole Men, which are now the new troop builder that's coming out for Cobra, is falling into that same problem for me. It's part of the Night Force line. It seems to be a Walmart exclusive kind of thing for the most part for what I'm seeing. And I'm not even upset more or less about that. I'm critical about it, but I mean, I get it. You have to have these exclusives. You have contracts with these big box companies that you have to fulfill to ensure your sales quotas are being predictable. And I get that. But by making a troop builder very exclusive, I think is damaging to the concept of a troop builder. And then we get into a secondary discussion about the biggest IED I see coming out of this, and that is the Dark Energon subject matter that they're going into with this series. So I mentioned it in one of my earlier videos. Pardon me while I coffee up. And that beautiful Leafs mug, who this team struggles, but at least they won the last couple. Sorry, Vancouver fans. Sorry, Calgary fans. Anyways, with the whole troop builder threat and that being a real detriment to collecting these and then going into the Dark Energon stuff. This is the Transformers line and the G.I. Joe line taking another run at each other. Two bulls in a china shop ready to... They say they want to help each other's franchise and collaborate and do all this stuff, but at the same time, they upset each other. And I think it's more the Transformers upsetting the Joe than the Joe upsetting the Transformers. And I don't know about you guys, and this is probably the question of the day. Where do you guys stand on this whole Transformers G.I. Joe crossover if it comes into classified as it is right now? Right now, what I'm seeing it as is this is the low-hanging fruit again to take a big money grab and try and reignite a flame into another product entirely different from the product that you have your fan base in. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's fine. I understand there's a large market of Transformer friends out there, but I also see a lot of damage done to that franchise as there had been with G.I. Joe. But they went deeper into the hole with their damage. Like, Michael Bay movies on Transformer are so questionable that people don't tend to flock to the theaters to find out. Let's be realistic. Most people will find a streaming service and wait for it, right? And find out then. Because they turned into this visual barf session of tech and CGI with sometimes convoluted and sometimes too convoluted plots to try and drive what they're trying to market here. And I mean, the Transformers overall as a franchise and as a concept and the different variations we've seen over our lifetime is fine on its own. It's great. It's great. It's fine. I just don't like some of the attempts they've tried to brand it to new generations and then jam it down their throats with up team movies. Like, it's like, yeah, it's getting ridiculous, and that isn't something that Marvel is exactly innocent of either. And I'm a huge Marvel fan. But when I see G.I. Joe dipping back and forth into this, I feel like it damages Joe. They tried a couple of movies. They were hit or miss. Snake Eyes was a real big miss as far as I saw it. And the other two, they had potential, but they pandered. They pandered to the Hollywood producers who want flashy effects and not the traditional old stuff, right? And I don't think the next few movies are going to do that. I think they're really going to put an effort on trying to show you some traditional Joes with Hallmark traditional outfit pieces, maybe. But they're going to go jam them into the Transformers universe. And I feel like as a Joe consumer, that is Hasbro acknowledging I'm a round peg, but telling me you're going to want to go into this square hole. Look at the Night Force line. Look at Big Ben. Look at Jody Shooter. This is the only way you get them, man. And that's kind of what it feels like to me, right? And that's my opinion on the biggest threat right now. Is if you're going to do that, fans that do see it my way, collectors that do see it my way, they're looking at their financial interest in this, and they're going, okay, how much more do you want to take out of my pocket today? I like your product, I really do. I love what you do with it. I love how creative you get with it, and I love how it makes me feel. You make me feel 13 again. You make me feel 12 again. It's fine. We all get this. We all have a different kind of nostalgia reason for coming back to this. And for those that are new to it, they have another reason to like it too, but they should be aware, or they should look back and go, well, what happened to this before? And you can see that we're going down same road, right? And Night Force, one of those. Okay, so just quickly going over some of the roster and talking about that, not making an enemy of Walmart or anybody like that. I'm just going to go up to my Night Force line and just tell you what maybe we're going to expect as far as the next few releases for them. And then we're going to end the video with this, okay? So let me just find my Night Force video. It's going to help if I get the glasses on, right, everybody? I think so. You think so? Okay, Night Force. So, like I said, when the sun goes down, the Night Force squad is ready. Night Force, again, this is, I don't own my images. This is Joepedia helping me out. But if I look at the original line, the discussion goes towards more about what we're going to see coming than what we have currently. And so I talk about the first guy that's in that Joe line, and I only have represented what I have represented because I don't own too much that's from the Night Force line or any of that. The reason this guy's up here is because this is the one contribution I laughed at that Dan Levine provided to the G.I. Joe line that made them go, okay, right? He sat down in the boardroom and put this in front of them when he was trying to get how Wesson's vision could work. He said it would work like this, the old wooden artist statue. Anyways, he fit in well with my Joes. But you can see I'm pretty limited. It's like basically Duke, skip these guys, and yeah, we'll move Duke over here. And I can hear my other stuff falling, and that's fine. I'll clean up after the video. We'll move Duke over here. All right, so Crazy Leg is the very first one I see on that list. And the only Crazy Leg I know of that we are to expect is coming with the HasLab Dragonfly. And of course, it is going to be the Night Force Crazy Leg. No problems there. Hasbro has covered itself. We are good. And we're all in high anticipation because it does look amazing. Everything I've seen about the HasLab Dragonfly and Crazy Leg, yep, I'm on board. I wish I could afford it, but you keep doing this stuff. This is the most interesting one for me. LT Falcon. Okay. Why? Because his uniform looks cool. And if ever there was a guy who needed a second swing at this line, it's Falcon. You can see, I've even got him distracted. Right now, my Desert Commando Snake Eyes, who I call Lynx because I don't think he's Snake Eyes, has stolen his beret and distracted him from facing the camera, because if we do, I have to reshoot the video. His face is a real bad sculpt. That has been the big complaint about the people who collect this series, was Falcon looked so 60s terrible that he didn't fit in with the rest of the figures in the line. He just, something didn't work. Nothing gelled. I think a Night Force Falcon is a good opportunity for them to take another swing at it. Hope I can get one. I think every collector would probably appreciate that second attempt, at least to bump ahead over to the original figure then. So get that face sculpt. There's our opportunity. That's not an IED. That's something to look forward to. IED threat, where we see another one coming though, is Outback. Outback is part of that line from the 1988 line. And I think we've seen enough of Outback. We got a really good Tiger Force and we got a good original Outback coming out of that line. They were almost exact mirrors, but they were repaints, of course. But, you know, you even thought, Hasbro, you brilliant little people, you, to age one of the Outbacks. Oh, I liked that. I liked that a lot, especially considering, you know, in the Night Force Outback, I see he's not aged at all. And I didn't pay much attention to the original Tiger Force one to notice, but you keep trying to bring your market back and say, it's for you kids that grew up and now have gold hair, or silver hair, pardon me, gold hair. Who's got gold hair? Moving on. This is worth mentioning. Psych Out. Psych Out is popping up on my radar a few different ways and a few different things I've been looking at as to what could possibly coming down the line. And I think Psych Out presents them an opportunity to do a revamp on some old tech again, like I said, with mainframe, where you could modernize, and just use the traditional uniform, but an upgraded equipment list that works for the character. I think Psych Out is probably that opportunity that we might want to see, and Sneak Peek as well. Who knows? I can see Sneak Peek becoming a drone operator and having something along those lines and being justified. These big, large telescope devices that they had, not so much. So that's just talking about that wave. And I go back to Psycho when I say these modernized and updated equipment and taking some risks to step away from an original loadout. Hasbro is capable of doing this, and Shockwave to me was a successful enough variant of that, or example of that. And I say that tongue in cheek because I know it's the one of the more recent videos I did just before Remembrance Day when I got Shockwave, and there was a bit of discussion back and forth from one of my top contributors, Demagism, and about whether we like the figure or not as a general market. And I thought it's not going to be a peg warmer. People are going to like this figure. But I also hadn't watched the reviews or listened to some of the other stuff coming out about it. I just had my own thoughts on it. And I guess maybe I kind of missed the mark on some people's opinion down south about it, who aren't fans of this. And specifically what they were talking about, is just some of the changes that Hasbro did do to rejuvenate an older character. Shockwave, when he came out in the 80s line, he had a machete, he had a Mac 10 with an Uzi, he was dressed in riot gear, he was taking advantage of the old RoboCop era of law enforcement glorification and all this other stuff, and he was kind of all over the place kit-wise. They dialed him in and they gave him relevant kit to what his trade would represent, his career path. And he was supposed to be SWAT. So SWAT will do things like riot control and breaching. So there are a couple of different shield types that could be made available to a character like, Shockwave. We see that he does show up in the Night Force line, so there's an opportunity to satisfy us and to put an end to my discussion. With under 90 subscribers right now, I expect this is the exact fuel Hasbro needs to make this change. But maybe what we will see is Shockwave with maybe a plexiglass smaller shield in the future, or maybe they'll step away from the shield entirely. I already had a criticism about the shield in that the design wasn't considered for what they were putting on it. It's in the wrong hand, in my opinion, completely. Everything we see from Shockwave in the art before, he's a right-handed firer, so why are you slapping the shield there? But then twin guns, yeah, I don't see it necessarily. Moving down the list of what we can expect for night options, let's say. And when I say options, I'm like, after we get through the first 5 or 6 of these guys, it's an anything goes platter. We see that because we've included Big Ben and we've included Shooter, right? So Charbroil, Lightfoot, well, we don't have originals for any of these guys, but I'm going to pull one out that I think is going to come. Muskrat. G.I. Joe loves shotguns. They have lots of shotgun molds for classified right now, and they kind of throw them all over the place, whether it makes necessarily sense for the character or not. Uh, telling a production team that it's going with a shotgun is a sigh of relief because they can just go, oh, pull mold 23 it is. Shotgun on the way. Good to go. And Muskrat is the kind of guy you would put a shotgun on, right? So I can see a Muskrat coming up before or maybe as a Night Force, but definitely there. And then Repeater and Spearhead, I don't really know those ones. They're well after I got out of the market in '89. You know, I think I was getting ready for high school at that point and very much into the X-Men Massacre Beneath the Streets and all those other great little things that were coming out from Marvel to walk me away. So we got all that, and then what they dabbled in 2003, 2004. I just add in for the fact that you can see it's kind of everything goes. Crosshair, no idea who that is. Duke suddenly shows up. Then you get Nunchuck in there, and now he looks like a beefcake warrior. Like, I don't understand that, but sure. And then Action Man joins up, and I'm like, tell me more about Action Man. Beachhead, you heard me mention, I think this might be the Beachhead you might see closer to in the classified design, where he doesn't have the beret, he's got that chest harness. Let's not worry about what paint they go with, but then they throw in the usual Flint Roadblock, Tunnel Rat, again, Short Fuse. Oh, God, Short Fuse better have an original before they do that, or at least a retro card, right? So that's my look at Night Force as it goes there. Before I go on that, I'm just going to talk about the figures. Also had vehicles. Another entire video, because right now we're too new into Hasbro to start pounding on them about what vehicles we want. Like, we just need to sit back and go, it's okay. That vehicle you just came out with, we like it, we don't like it, that's fine. Get to know what we're saying so you don't make a myriad of crappy stuff. I'm shocked, actually, with the vehicle releases we've had, and I haven't planned on talking about that, but one of the ones that shocked me the most, I gotta say this, I hope it's not like this for long for you guys down south. I hope it's not like this at all for you guys in the south with the flight pod for Cobra. I thought it would be a little bit more available up here in Canada by now, but I haven't been able to find one just here in Ottawa. I'm sure if I were to bounce over to Toronto, center of the Canadian universe, I would maybe find one, and it would be reasonably priced. But I went on Amazon the other day, and they wanted, I think, upwards of $300 or more for it. And yeah, I think it was $284 or something like that. And then you got your shipping and handling. And I was like, what the actual fuck? Pardon me. What is going on? Why is that now so hard to get? Did something happen on the pre-sale market with collectors that tipped that out there? The reason I get to that is because all my pre-orders are starting to come in and the tap is open from Hasbro. I'm waiting on my pre-order for my Vamp, and I'm just wondering right now, because I'm going to put a down payment no matter what, is that going to create a mistake from Hasbro to over-explain their vehicles? When I say IED for what's ahead for this line and for G.I. Joe Classified and these sub-series, it's not like I think the whole thing blows up. My point about an IED is that an IED is a bunch of pieces slapped together to create cataclysmic damage to a target and take it out of the equation, right? Either neutralize it or destroy it, right? And we are the biggest indicator of an IED maker is, and they talk about in that lovely movie Hurt Locker and all these other war movies, he's always got, a bite from his product. His monsters have always bitten him. He's got scars. He's lost fingers, things like that. And that's where our IED affects us as well. How many fingers is Hasbro going to lose on this one, right? So I don't look at them as an improvised explosive device. I came up with my own acronym. What was it? It was an inflated excitement decline. So what I mean by that is that, the drop pods got, mixed reviews. They come out hard with the Vamp. And then the sales don't go where they think they're going to go. But the demand is up. The demand are like, you got that pretty good. We're having availability issues. We want, and we want this list of vehicles next. And you're on the hook because our expectations are high, right? And then you're like, but yeah, so many of our other problems are sabotaging. While the fan sentiment is like, we want, we want, we want, the fan feedback is, we're angry, we're dissatisfied, I'm walking away from this product, I've had enough. We don't need to look far for an example of that. And I see a lot of talk about Marvel Legends and Build-A-Figures and things like this, and a lot of fan disappointment that drives them to this point to buy everything in the line for this inflated outcome that they're told to expect. And then they're very disappointed. And that disappointed isn't just coming from a good place of like, you didn't achieve the objective with reminding me of this character. It's coming from a very real place that Hasbro and any other company couldn't ignore. It's coming from the wallet. It's coming from them saying, you made this figure very hard to get. You made this figure very expensive to get. You made it so that I had to get this to complete this set. You made it so I wanted this set to complete this figure or something. Like, this is a HasLab, but I'm talking about the Build-A-Figures, right? And then you have these higher income ones like the Ant-Man or Giant Man, a HasLab, like the His Tank, like the upcoming Ghost set for the Star Wars fans out there, which, oh my God, I mean, I'm not a Star Wars collector. I am a Star Wars fan. I think all of us must be. Some to grab. That thing is amazing looking. But I know that thing's coming with a hit like the Dragonfly or worse, right? And so it's a very IED laid road with these variants, and then the HasLabs added into it. I know I've strayed a little bit away from the Night Force point of it, but you see where these roads can take us, and it gets a little frightening when you see the product getting so popular that you know you've been here before, right? That's the thing about me, guys, is I have no degree in marketing. I have no degree in business. I am a recce soldier, and I've got a different perspective on everything I look at, it seems, when I talk to other people. My perspective is very different. And I'll tell you right now, I'm the kind of guy that if I walk into a room once and I walk into that room again 20 years later, I recognize that room. You can repaint it and you can move the furniture around, but I know that room. G.I. Joe Classified is a room I know. I know it from 81 through 89, basically, right? I know it because you made me relearn it. And we all know where we lost interest, and we all know why. And when you start straying down these roads and you start giving us everything that reminds us of that, you're giving us everything that reminds us of that. Interesting, I think. Guys, I don't want to end on that because it sounds so negative. But just remember, you have to remember the founding of the company. It was about rejuvenating a love of its military. That's in parallel with what Hasbro has said about modernizing it and comparing it to its military. It was about giving boys a toy to compete with Barbie. It's the first toy that ever coined the term action figure. That's another Dan Levine thing. It's an action figure. We have action figures not because of Star Wars. We have action figures because of Dan Levine at Hasbro, right? Hasbro is a very historic company, groundbreaking. I have utmost respect for them. All my videos are more about praising them than ever criticizing them. But when I look at Root Hasbro, we have to go slow. That's all. Just go slow. You can be inclusive, you can do new things, but this tap and this lack of availability through big box exclusives and all these other things, these are obstacles. They aren't going to help you. They might give you some short-term goal objectives for price, but they're going to upset your fan base, and your fan base can walk at any point. You might not predict which one is going to do it, which IED stops the column and makes everybody not want to go out anymore. All right, guys, that's it for part 2. Part 3 will be up, and I'm going to tackle it is probably going to be shorter. Some Python Patrol discussion. All right, I'll see you then. Hey, by the way, subscribe, like, comment, all of it. We're all good. We'll see you next time. Bye.